Thanks, John.
Can I be the pedal driver?
Want to be a
Hey, how
what?
you doing?
Oh, this doesn't feel like the right one.
No, oh, this is pretty
Isn't
low.
it?
This must be,
I can't even
this
imagine
must
how much
be
money
you
we
spent
spent.
on this.
Exactly.
We good to go, Dan?
I am, Mayor.
How about,
Dan is
Dan's
ready.
good?
Yes,
Okay.
Dan is ready as well.
For sure.
I'd like to call to order the City of Oconomowoc Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
If you'd call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski. Alderman Douglas. Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Altman-Cloth. Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Here. Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
All right, we're going to have an open discussion committee business on the Rockwell Partners Development Update. That's going to be presented by the developer. Then we will go into a closed session of the Committee of the Whole where we will actually move and go into room number 3. So we'd like to go ahead and get started with the Rockwell Partners Development Update.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Committee of the Whole, for the opportunity to give you an update here tonight on the Rockwell Development Project. So we have a slightly updated packet that I just passed out. There are no wholesale changes. We just added some clarifications based on feedback that we've received, both from public and private input over the last few weeks since the last official meeting. So I'm just going to hit what we changed and let you know some of those highlights, and then Jeff Skrema has a few comments to make, and then we'll open it up for any questions. I don't want to go long.
Sounds good. So we'll, Council, you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions of the developer at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
So really, in the packet, there's 3 key updates. On the front page, you'll notice, or maybe you won't notice, but I'll point it out. Previously, we had sort of an enclosure shown that was meant to show where a potential transformer may be, and we've worked with the city utilities director and some of the staff to figure out a way to locate that in a different location. So we've removed that from the presentation rendering. So again, that previous enclosure was for a potential transformer, and again, a very minor aesthetic thing, but we wanted to point it out that we made an additional change there. Right now, we've got a couple alternate locations that are closer to Main Street, which make a lot more sense with the utility infrastructure in place. So we just, again, wanted to be as transparent and accurate as we could with some of the changes and input that we've received since the last meeting. And then if you flip to page 8, there's been a significant amount of discussion on the proposed alterations from the parking lot to the Village Green. So we wanted to just make sure that we provided some additional information for the Committee of the Whole and the City Council to have at their behalf. Right now, again, the proposal, as we have put it together, we are proposing to move the property line 18 feet to the south. That's been much publicized and discussed, and that is in order to allow for double parking versus single parking, which is currently in that parking lot. We've also shown graphically with some calculations the added hard surface from the parking, right around 2,500 square feet. And then with the proposal, this has always been a part of our proposal, but it hasn't necessarily been talked about in a public setting. There is currently the idea of removing some of the interior sidewalks, which account for a little bit over 2,600 square feet of hard surface. So our intent has always been to provide a solution that adds additional parking, but still maintains the use of the Village Green. And we understand that that part is certainly something that we want to work with the city on to continue to explore how to do that best. But we did want to provide some additional information with the current proposal of how we were adjusting the Village Green. And then if you flip to page 9, this is a new exhibit that we added. Again, we've had quite a bit of input on kind of the last part of the boardwalk, if I can call it that. And we wanted to make sure everybody understood the design parameters that we're working under. The current boardwalk that was put in place in 2017 has a 12-foot wide walkway that does not include the bump outs. That's just the clear walkway, and so we've maintained that 12-foot walkway in our design. The area that is adjacent to our building, there is a part of it that is currently proposed to be covered. There's a variety of design reasons for that we've sort of addressed previously, but we wanted to let everybody know the dimensions between the exterior of the building and the building columns is just over 12 feet, and then we have an additional 4 feet outside of the columns. So we've tried to maintain the integrity of the boardwalk, the design intent of the boardwalk, and make sure that there is adequate space for seating that is complementary to the rest of the current public boardwalk. We know that there's been comments about the restaurant being able to access the boardwalk. The intent on our end has always been to have that as a public boardwalk. If people want to take food and go sit outside like they do now, certainly that would be fine, but it would not be used by the private sector. It would be a public boardwalk. So we just wanted to add some additional clarification to that, as that has been a pretty common request of both our team and the development team over the last couple weeks. We also wanted to designate that the current docks or the boat slips, we have shown 6 boat slips from the beginning. That is based on what the DNR will allow for this development. Those could be private use, they could be public use. It's more the fact that we can only do 6, and that's what we wanted to show graphically, the proposed location for those. So we've relabeled that public and private use to add clarification to the presentation. So those are the updates that we've made to the packet, and certainly open to any questions or comments that anybody would have on those updates.
Alderman Rozak.
Thanks for that. From the actual building, not from the columns in this little under, seating area or whatever, but from the actual building envelope itself to the edge of the lake, well, how much is that?
16 feet,
That's 16 feet.
3 inches.
And if we, I'm not convinced that we need another big fishing pier here, or that those boat slips need to be public-private. We've got something like that right on the other side. If we remove those 2 items, I mean, is that something that you believe the development group would be comfortable with?
I would say that I'll answer that a little bit from a different perspective. When we met with the DNR, we asked, what can we do? And the DNR said, you can do a private boat slip or a boat slip, which we're allowed 6 spots, and you can do a fishing pier, and that's it. It's very black and white. And so we showed both of those options based on feedback that we've received from public and private feedback. So that's why it's on there. I wouldn't say it's...
I'd have no problem with the private boat slips. I guess, as we're talking about the project in general, I think having another fishing pier like we have literally 50 feet away, and having another public boat slip like we have 120 feet away that doesn't really get used that often. There's only 40 or 50 houses on Fowler that have boats. I don't know, is that about right? So how many people are driving up? And, so I don't mind those staying private. You guys pay for it. I just don't think we should have to pay for that or that other fishing pier. I just don't think it's a necessity there.
I would let
Let's kind of
Jeff
keep
speak to it, but
asking.
I think we're open to coordination with the city on direction
some
on
of
that.
those issues. Okay.
And we can talk further in closed session on that.
Yeah, those are good questions, Alderman. Just want to clarify, what's shown on page 9 in purple as the public and private use boat slip area, our concept was to have 2 of those slips open for the public, and there would be signage to designate that as such, with the idea that we'd probably get a restaurant on the main floor, so if there were people that wanted to cruise around the lake and then dock and go eat at the restaurant, they would be able to do so. Also, I want to point out that the public and private dock area in purple would be funded 100% by us. So
Anyway.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would be funded 100% by us anyways, yep.
Alderman Mulder?
I'm looking at page 8 now and looking at the public space increase. I understand what is going on there and how you're getting that. I'm wondering, with that 11%, you have the 2,676 square feet hard surface removed. Are you also adding up all of what's in purple on the right-hand side to get to your total increase? And are you also considering removal of those retaining pond areas, those wet areas, so in the calculation of what the increased space is?
Sure. The 11% increase graphic in the middle of the page is just basically an aggregate calculation of what is currently considered public versus what would be public under the new development. So it's essentially the additional boardwalk space, which is currently private property, and then some of the additional amenities like the proposed fishing pier. So if some of those items were adjusted, that number would adjust as well. We were just trying to show graphically sort of the increased public available space, if that makes sense, without really breaking out, is it a boardwalk, is it parking? It's just what's there right now that the public can access legally versus what would be there after the development that the public could access legally.
I think that's what I understood. So even in the indoor public amenities as part of that.
That is a part of that calculation.
I think when,
Yes.
from my perspective, when I'm talking to residents about this, when they're talking about, losing space, it might be too conceptual for them to think about all that footprint. They're seeing a shrinking of a park.
Understood.
Grass.
Of the grass, right?
Yeah.
But I do think once you remove the sidewalks and you take out those retaining ponds, you may end up at a very close amount of green space that's actually where you could go and sit on a piece of grass. But, okay, I just wanted to be clear because that's a question.
No, it's a good question. And we have really tried hard to be transparent and explain the concept of the design. And I know it's not always easy to grasp all the different variables involved, so we appreciate those comments.
Alderman Kavieski.
Two quick things. Alderman Mulder, I think a previous version of this had, I'm not sure if the wording was total public space or total green space, but the public space wording is appropriate, right? So to help clarify that, I think that will help that move forward. From the fishing pier standpoint, I see kids fishing off that pier and people enjoying that pier quite a bit. So I know we'll talk about that offline, but any that we can incorporate into this project that provides better access to enjoy the water, I'm all for.
And I'll add again, from the DNR's perspective, they only allow boat piers and fishing piers. And so those are the only two types of piers we can show from the design standpoint.
Any other questions from council before we get a presentation from Mr. Screema? Mr. Screema.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. This has been a long journey. You remember we were back with you in November asking for your input, and through a lot of time and hard work and through your direction, we've been able to come back to you with a plan which brings forth all the things that you asked us for. And we continue to be in a mode of listening both to you as elected officials but also to the community. I want to let you know that we will be holding additional community info sessions. Mary Claire will talk about that a little bit later. We're also going to create a website which will have this presentation booklet on it, as well as frequently asked questions, and then a place where people can ask questions if they want, if they were not able to come to any of our community meetings. Just a few comments to add to what John said. Regarding the green space, so we are through the changes from the existing site plan to the proposed site plan. The amount of grass space will remain the same. Actually, I think it'll actually increase a little bit. And that also includes, in our proposal, the public bathrooms being inside of our building. So we're fully aware that you have two options for the public bathrooms. You can put them in our building, or you can put them on the side of the Excedra Bar and Grill. We're indifferent as far as what you choose to do, but I just want to point out that if you did put it on the side of the Excedra Bar and Grill, you're going to be taking up more of the precious green space. So we're trying to help you by allowing it to go inside of our building. The other thing I wanted to point out, we've been back and forth on the TIF. We made an initial TIF request, and then you went into closed session, and then we modified the request. And the staff has been very helpful to us. The mayor has been very helpful, and Administrator Fry has been very helpful. My understanding is that the latest options include, there are various scenarios that were ran, and we actually talked to Administrator Fry about this and asked him to do it so you could see what does work and what doesn't work mathematically. So one of the options that was, that you have before you is for us to go to a 4-story building and remove $10 million of assessment. And unfortunately, that does not cash flow. So mathematically, that does not work. Another option was to do 4 stories and remove $8 million of assessed value. The $8 million is sort of a random number. I'm not sure who came up with that number.
I did.
Okay. But $8 million does not work for us as a developer, because if we lose a floor of our building, we lose $10 million. And part of that value that we get in the top floor is the money that we use for the facade of the building. So we want to keep the historic integrity of your downtown. We want to use real brick. We want to do the rounded windows. We want to do real stone lintels, thick crown molding. We want to make it a building that everyone will be proud of for decades to come. So if you end up reducing the height, we're not going to have the money available to do that. Another thing that we're facing, unfortunately, not only have material costs skyrocketed for us in the last year or so, which you're all aware of, but now the Fed's raising interest rates. They're talking recession. The stock market is down. So we can't, unfortunately, we can't go any further financially. I wish we could, because I love this project, and I love the momentum that you've started in Oconomowoc. But we can't do it at 4 stories with an $8 million reduction in assessment. So the third option would be to maintain the 5 stories and then have the city fund the bathrooms and the community room through other city funds that you have, reserves or so on. And we are able to bring that down to the 15-year, which is what was always requested. So that's the option that, that we would like to see. I fully realize that you hold all the cards. I mean, I've been in your shoes. So we brought to you our best. We want to genuinely want to produce a product that people will love, not only with the public amenities, but also with a building that's a high-class building that's of the level of Oconomowoc. So thank you again for your time, and again, we're happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
I have 2 questions. Thanks, Jeff. If we didn't do the community room and the public bathrooms, what do you envision as a use for that space? Would that be another retail space for you guys? I don't know how big it is overall.
Yes, it would be some type of retail space, because that's what the zoning code requires. So we're in the mixed-use zoning area, so the main floor has to be retail. And we already know from one restaurateur that spoke at one of the last meetings that he would love to have that space. But we've given you the first right to it, because that's what you asked us to do in November. So it's yours unless you tell us you don't want it. And also, the price, the numbers that we gave you on that space was our cost. We felt that was like the right thing to do. So we're not making any profit on that space if you take it as bathrooms or as a community room.
Okay. And then my second question is, you said on the one option, it would be a $10 million difference by going down to 4 floors. We've kind of talked about this before. Where does that 10 million come from? Is that 10 million for a top floor? Because what we're basically saying, if we come down a floor, is you're basically taking out the second floor. You've still got a top floor, a premier, primo top floor with great views. So where does that 10 million come from?
Yeah, great question. So people will not pay as much for a 4th floor as they will for a 5th floor. And we actually have data to back that up from Eagles Landing and from Fowler Lake Village. And we know that the top floor is worth $10 million. That's pretty indisputable, and we know that the next floor down is worth less. The next floor down is worth significantly less, and actually drops. You know, by the time we get to the main level, we're not actually losing money when we sell the retail space, even at market prices. So really, it's people will pay more to be higher in the building and to have those views.
But if you're taking off the 10 million and you still have a top floor that's worth whatever,
You're still
isn't that an,
you're
isn't
still
that a-
you're still taking out an entire floor. Yeah. So. And again, I wish we could do it. Like, my heart is in this project. MSI team has worked really hard. Their heart is in this community. Like, if we could do it, we would do it. But mathematically, we can't. And then on top of that, again, we're facing increased interest rates, high material costs, you know, recession. So it's like we're right at we've brought you our best from day one. We haven't changed what we said from day one.
Any further questions? Okay, at this point, we are going to go into closed session, and we'll be back at the end of closed session. And the closed session has two different sections. We're going to convene according to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.851E. We're going to be deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Public-private partnership of the Rockwell Partners LLC, redevelopment project of the TIF request. Second item we're going to be addressing is considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where Part B applies, which, if discussed in public, would likely have a substantial adverse effect on the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations. Committee to specifically receive information pertaining to an issue related to a city department head. So we'll be going into public session or closed session at this point in time and come back to resume and then close the committee of the whole meeting.
With a motion and a
I'd like to entertain a
I'll
motion.
move we go into closed session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
in session. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Ellis.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Now, just need one moment, Mayor.
So one moment, we'll get the IT rolling, and we'll get started. Well, wow, this is pretty cool. Welcome, everybody. Okay. So as announced earlier, if you want to make a comment during the public comments section, there are blue cards. Please fill them out, and we'll talk about that when we get closer to that section.
Mayor.
You ready?
Yes.
Great. I'd like to call to order the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Would you all please rise and we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all and welcome this evening. It's great to have everyone so engaged here in the city. I'd like to call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Douglas. Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Altman-Cloth. Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Here.
Great, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for June 7th, 2022.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I'd like to, without objection, I'd like to be able to move item 10A, which are the mayoral appointments with council confirmation. These are two fine people that are going to donate their time to help our community and city. I'd like to bring them forth. Any objection, council members? Great, okay, we'll move on to item 10A, and then we'll come back to the beginning part of the agenda. If our clerk could introduce our two applicants, they are here today. And if council, if you have any questions, they'd be happy to come up to the microphone before we vote for approval.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We have two applicants for committees, and we have a Jennifer Hooper, and that would be the library board is the board that she is being appointed to by the school district, but it does need the mayor's appointment as well and council confirmation, as well as Bertus Galbraith, if I am pronouncing that correct, I apologize. And Bertus is being appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a second alternate, and then the Board of Review this evening by the mayor.
So if our library appointment, if you could please stand and come up to the podium and give this opportunity for the council if you have any questions. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Alderman Rozak.
Hi, Jennifer. Were you at the last library board meeting?
For Oconomowoc, no, I was not.
Have you been on the library board before?
No, I
For the
haven't.
Oconomowoc? Okay. Your background in the library stuff is pretty impressive, and I really appreciate that. I continue to have some concerns with not with you per se, but with the library board in general, that we have a lot of people involved in the library and a lot of library people, and not just a lot of regular people. Just regular patrons of the library, to bring a slightly different perspective. I'm going to vote for you tonight. I'm just curious what your thoughts, if you think it's important for us to also get some just regular patrons who are just random people, maybe not library people, library science people.
I appreciate what you're saying. For the school board members, I think for representing the school, it makes sense that they would pick a librarian
Yeah.
to represent them. I can see what you're saying. I have not been part of a city library board before,
Sure.
though, so I don't know how to answer that.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you coming in, and I try to ask most people questions when I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Mulder.
So welcome to the Oconomowoc School District as well. Which school are you going to be at?
I will be at Nature Hill and Silver Lake, and then
Okay.
I'll be the district librarian as well.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us.
Any further questions? Okay, we're going to have you sit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bertus Galbraith, if you would mind coming up, that would be wonderful. And also entertain any questions before we go to vote. Alderman Kavieski.
Welcome. I think it might just be worthy of our community knowing a little bit about your background in regards to the community. You're definitely out there and continue to provide more presence in more locations.
Sure.
So
So I was born and raised here. I graduated from Oconomowoc High School, joined the Navy, moved away for a short stint of 30 years, retired. Worked for Johnson & Johnson, making contact lenses, retired from there. Then moved back here and was working for Bruno Independent Living Aids for a while. We, me and my fiance have a business downtown, Violet Blue. We are currently working on opening up a second business downtown. And everything about me.
thank you so much for that and everything you're doing downtown.
Alderman Ellis.
What year did you graduate from?
84,
84?
or 82, sorry, 82. 84 is when I joined the military.
Burtis, thanks for coming out. I think you and I actually spoke during the last election cycle, if I remember correctly. So welcome. You definitely got appointed to the two most interesting boards. This Zoning Board of Appeals is where I started my little career in local politics, and it's actually very interesting. So I hope you enjoy it. And there's a lot of really cool things that come through. You might not have a lot of meetings, but when you do, they can be kind of exciting. So thanks for your service. We appreciate it.
A little bit on a personal note, Burtis, he and I have had a couple lunches. He reached out and said, hey, what can I do for the city? And those are the types of people that we really want to have engaged in making it better, that service, and very much appreciated and glad we could find a great spot for you. Any further questions from council or comments from you, Burtis? Sounds good.
Thanks.
I'd like to entertain a motion on the approval of both appointees.
So moved.
Second, Shellpepper.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth, Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Wonderful, and thank you, council, for letting us bring the appointments forward. It's nice to not have to have them stay for 2 hours in a council meeting to then continue to serve, so appreciate that very much. So we're going to move on to the comments and suggestions from citizens. And in that, we're going to start off with all the blue cards and then move on. Do you want to start with Center of Growth? Let's go ahead with the update and the presentation of the Waukesha County Center of Growth. Since they've also traveled here in time, I want to be respectful of their time in coming to share some of the things that I think everyone in the audience will enjoy hearing. And then after that, we'll move on to the blue cards and public comment. So we'll start off, Mr. Duffy, if you could do the introductions, please.
Sure. As part of our partnership with the Waukesha County Center for Growth, and if you recall last year, you had asked for them to do continual updates. We do have a partnership along with the other municipalities in Waukesha County. Obviously, Oconomowoc is one of those prominent ones. They might talk about we're one of the four that are pretty much prominent in what happens in this county. So they wanted to be able to continue to make sure that they update you on their progress and their work, not both in the county, but also in the city of Oconomowoc. So with that, I'll turn it over to Suzanne Kelly and Robin Ludke to share that information with you.
I can drive for you gonna drive for me? Great. Hi. Good evening, everyone. I'm Suzanne Kelly. I'm President and CEO of the Waukesha County Business Alliance. Thanks for your time tonight. We're here to provide a brief update on the Center for Growth, as well as some data that we thought you might find interesting about Waukesha County, as well as the city of Oconomowoc. So real briefly, here is our core team. I've already introduced myself. The Business Alliance is a close partner for the Center is a close partner with the Center for Growth. We share staff, we are co-located, and we provide a lot of the support services. Next up on this slide is Nicole Riff. This is a person we really want you to meet. Nicole is the incoming executive director for the Center for Growth. Her first day will be July 11th, so hopefully you'll meet her shortly thereafter. She comes to the Center for Growth from the Hampton Roads Alliance in Norfolk, Virginia, which is an economic development organization that provides services to 14 communities as well as a variety of stakeholders in that area. So in a way, very similar to the Center for Growth, which provides economic development services for 14 municipal investors as well as the county as a whole and its many business stakeholders. Nicole is a native of Wisconsin, so she's eager to come back to this area. Prior to her current role at Hampton Roads, she had a variety of economic development roles in the state of Texas, working for the governor of Texas in his Department of Economic Development and Tourism. She also served as a community development director in the city of Evansville, Wisconsin. She got her bachelor's degree at UW-Milwaukee, her master's in urban planning from UWM, so she's going to come in with a wealth of experience around business expansion, business financing, business relocation, and so on. So we will be introducing you to her, I'm sure, sometime over the next several months. Next on the slide is Robin Ludke. She is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Workforce. Robin has been supporting the Center for Growth since its inception in 2016. And over the last 4 months, she has really stepped in to help lead operations at the Center for Growth while that board was searching for a new executive director. And then the final two people on this slide are Lucy Waldhutter and Phil Ostrowski. They are the Small Business Development Center consultants that are embedded at the Center for Growth. So they are just part of our broader team, really a unique relationship between the Center for Growth, the Business Alliance, and SBDC, as well as Oconomowoc, the other communities, and Waukesha County to provide economic development across the region. So we want to provide a little bit of information about a business survey that we did from July 2021 to August 2021. We partner with the Center for Growth, Waukesha County, and the WOW Workforce Development Board to survey businesses on their outlook. Key areas of focus were workforce development, business growth, some of their location specs, and some of their economic forecasting. We had businesses represented in 35 of the 37 municipalities in Waukesha County across a wide variety of industry sectors, as well as different business sizes, from sole proprietorships to companies with well over 1,000 people in Waukesha County. I will say that Oconomowoc was very well represented in that survey. You were one of the top 5 communities with respondents to the survey. So what were some of the things that we learned? Well, one of the things we learned is that despite the lingering effects of the pandemic, our businesses are still very optimistic about growth and that they plan to expand over the next 3 years. This is really very much on par with what we found out in the 2 previous surveys in 2017 and 2019. Almost 80% say they plan to be in a growth mode. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that the biggest challenge is workforce. I'm sure all of you have heard that. And again, that is very much on par with what we learned in the 2 previous surveys. It's kind of stayed consistent. The next closest issue was limited access to capital, which is one of the reasons we're really pleased at the Waukesha County Center for Growth that we've launched a Grow Fund to help businesses with gap financing for those businesses that want to grow. And Robin will talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. And then the third biggest issue was lack of public transportation, and I think you can lump that right back in with workforce, right? Employers are, finding it difficult to get employees from outside of the community to their locations in some case because of the lack of transportation. Again, back to growth. Almost half of our businesses are using 100% of the space, of their space, which again, I think points to the strength of our economy. And then another quarter are using 75% of their space. So really, it again means that the businesses are doing very, very well. And we're continuing to hear this today. I mean, this survey is now about a year old, but today we brought together our members from the construction industry, and very consistently over and over again, they said still very strong outlook. They're a little worried about inflation. They're still struggling with workforce, but you know, they have big backlogs and they still see future growth. Again, planning to expand their workforce. They're growing, they're planning to expand their workforce, even though they're challenged in finding workers. So that's kind of a disconnect, right? And I think if we go right to the next slide, it points to employers needing to be creative and think about different sources of talent. And when we interviewed them, for example, only 27% are really looking at hiring people with a criminal background. Another 27%, they're considering hiring some younger folks. A quarter are looking at automation as a way to address some of their workforce concerns, looking at ways to try to attract workers through programs like tuition reimbursement. But these point to some areas that we can work on to try, again, help employers find some sources of talent. And now I'll turn it over to Robin.
Yes, good evening, Council. Thank you for having us this evening. I had the pleasure.
I'm going to have you come up to the microphone, please.
yes,
Thanks.
can
And
you
you
hear
can
me?
pull it down so if you want. There you go. Whatever is comfortable.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us. Again, Robin Ludke with the Waukesha County Business Alliance and Center for Growth. I had the opportunity to present to the Chamber of Commerce here in Oconomowoc, and so I'm pleased to be able to kind of share some of the insides of Oconomowoc that we've been able to dive into with the Economic Development Department here. Loud and proud is the city of Oconomowoc here in Waukesha County. This slide is always exciting for organizations like ourselves to see because really you are in growth mode. And I think behind me you will see that you're in growth mode, and reading your agenda tonight you've got lots of development happening, and it's really helping. So I will start at the bottom. You can see that you had some residents come into the labor force right here that are live, working, playing right here in the city of Oconomowoc, and that's contributed to the business expansion that you've seen in the downtown businesses that have taken off. You're right in par when you look up top with the medium household income. So coming in right at that level area of Waukesha County. We will probably see that move a little bit, obviously, as inflation and salary has moved quickly in the last 6 to 8 months. Your population count keeps growing, even despite a pandemic that most of our neighboring communities did not see. And then you saw, obviously, that population change, so it's there for percentage for you. Diving in, we have an opportunity to work with your Economic Development Department on just creative ways of looking at the city and how we continue to find ways to attract individuals to your community. So by doing that, we have to research your community a little bit. We were able to dive in with Sewer Pack and find out that you have about 12,000 commuters coming in every day to the city of Oconomowoc. That's fantastic. You should all be patting yourself on the back for that. And you can see they're coming in from several different entry points, right? So they're not all kind of coming in one area. You see a lot of commuters coming in from the city of Milwaukee, and they're coming because they want to work here, right? You have the jobs that they want to obtain. I do want to talk about your commuters leaving. So you see about almost 9,000 that are leaving to head to other positions. Majority of them are your neighboring communities. You also kind of see those coming in one area. You do see that almost 1,500 residents are live, working, and playing here, and that continues to go up. But I will say that you have an influx, just about 3,000 coming in every day to come to work. It's fantastic. This shows us that Oconomowoc is really transitioning over the past several decades from that bedroom community to being a central point of business here. And that development behind us is showing that. Suzanne talked a little bit about the Center for Growth. I think all of you are familiar with the organization, high level. These are 3 areas of focus that we really have been able to support the city, your businesses, and your greater community on: workforce development, business attraction and expansion, and business consulting. At the end of last year, the council received a letter from us that just gave you a snapshot of some of the activity that we had here in the city. So we wanted to just bring that forth again before we talk a little bit about the first 6 months of this year. Some notable items, you had about a little over 500,000 go in for capital infusion. We were able to name the city of Oconomowoc the representative for the Economic Development Roundtable. And we were able to support the mayor and the council's request in front of Waukesha County to start working on the bypass by the project of Highway 67. All right, transitioning this year. So we have been spending a lot of time with the city of Oconomowoc. It's always great to be here. It's great quality of life. We have robust partnerships with your school district, everywhere from kindergarten to seniors. We were delighted to represent the Oconomowoc School District at several of their graduations this year, as well as bring them forth for our Bridging the Gap. That's a program where we showcase school districts and their partnerships, and we brought forth the School District of Oconomowoc is really moving the needle forwards and exposing students to occupations. I would say attraction and expansion is probably the big wow right now that we've been able to support here in the city of Oconomowoc. We were able to support the request for an Idle Sites grant through WEDC to be able to help match that $250,000 going for the Olympia Fields project. So we did support that by a letter and advocating to WEDC. And then we were also able to support the city in an application to win a CETA award. And then lastly, you did see some headshots of those business consultants. They are boots on the ground, working with some of your businesses right now, so we'll be delighted at the end of the year to be able to bring forth exactly what they were able to do and how much capital infusion has come in. But just so you know, there are a couple of businesses right now that are seeking their support. Suzanne mentioned the Grow Fund. This is very exciting, I would say, for the city of Oconomowoc. As you know, we do have a collaborative fund. It is supported by the 4 banks that are seen there on the screen, and thank you to Bank 59, big supporter of this, as well as one of the founding banks. This is a $2 million economic development fund to support anything you can imagine for expanding your building, whether that's a bricks and mortar expansion or the automation that's needed, really focusing on workforce. This is available for the businesses to get them over the last mile. And it's really been beneficial. It's up and moving, so we'd be happy to come in and talk to any of the businesses about utilizing this fund. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about our business partners. We know a large expansion here on Highway 67 is really going to continue to move that needle in Waukesha County, and we are very happy to be able to support the Olympia Fields project. And I'd like to bring forth Matt Maroney in support as one of our closest business partners.
Thank you once again, Matt Maroney with One Guard Partners. Always a pleasure to appear before you. I know you have a lot on the agenda, so I'm going to be really brief here. This Center for Growth has been absolutely outstanding to work with. We work with different development agencies throughout southeast Wisconsin on a countywide basis. And I think that's important to really recognize is that liaison that they provide, not only for us directly to potential businesses that want to locate in the area, but also with other state agencies. So the support on the Idle Sites grants, I mean, every little bit helps, you know, to be able to attain that $250,000. And they're working on some big things as well, you know, with the Grow Fund and looking at workforce housing that we're excited about, some creative ideas to be able to do that. And as we all know, that's our #1 issue facing this county is workforce. And we've got to get people together, convene together, working to, you know, to find solutions. And, you know, they're kind of leading the way on that. And so I'm proud to speak on their behalf here tonight. And I thank them for their support and continued working relationship with our company. Thank you.
With that, we just want to thank you again for your time tonight. We really enjoy working with the city. We would enjoy and appreciate Bob Duffy chairing our Economic Development Roundtable, and we are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for coming and providing the update that Council had requested. Council, anyone have any questions or comments at this time before we move on to the public comments section? Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, why not? You'd mentioned in the slideshow there was $535,000 in capital infusion last year. What was that from?
I can take that. So we worked with about 23 different businesses, resulting in that. I can get the specific types of work that was done for that. That's done through our SBDC offices. Lucy Walhuter and Phil Ostrowski, they would be putting those actual numbers together, but let me just, if you give me 1 second.
You don't
Councilman,
have,
I
I
will
mean,
double check my
if you don't
notes
have it
for you.
now, I'm just curious.
Sure.
I'd love to get information on that just an email or something, or email the city administrator. I've got a couple other questions, but we got to.
Yeah, we can get specifics to you. The SBDC consultants track very specifically the businesses that they support and what they do in terms of getting loans for those businesses, expansion, purchase of products, and purchase of automation, so we can get a better breakdown for you.
Yeah, I'd be curious. As you know, I pulled you guys out of the budget cycle last year. I still want more hard evidence of what is actually brought. I mean, economic roundtables and, concepts to me don't equal $12,500 a year every year for decades on end. So before the budget cycle this year, I really need those kind of hard numbers. We got a letter just today from Paul Farrell, our county executive, about this group helping $800,000 in economic development come to the city. I need to know how. I need to know why. I need to know what that really means. I mean, did you just apply for a COVID grant? Okay. Or is it something actually tangible? Because we're spending that money every year, and I'd like to see those tangible numbers. Roundtables and things like that don't equal $12,500 a year. And so what I want is tangible numbers and what our business owners actually get, beyond just some consulting or beyond just, those type of things. So I do appreciate you guys coming, though. That is what I asked for you guys to do last year, and I appreciate you guys showing up and presenting us some information. So thank you.
Alderman Kavieski.
One of the things you touched on was transportation for workforce. It's a huge issue. Are you working with Paul Decker, others within the county? And it was a challenge 5-6 years ago to make sure that we were included in that last mile. I believe we're firmly embedded as the stop in that last mile, and what you're doing to help make sure that our businesses, as they do continue to grow, see that diversity in workforce.
We're both
We're both looking, I mean, we're exploring innovative solutions. So specifically right now, we are participating in a pilot project called Flex Ride that's funded by a $1 million National Science Foundation grant, which is getting workers from Milwaukee, or the unemployed who want to work from Milwaukee, to businesses in Butler and Menominee Falls. It's a pilot project, and it's just growing, it's just building. We're working to try to make it successful, and we are very much aware that a program like that is something that Oconomowoc is interested in. So we've talked about that, and it's high on our radar screen.
Yes, and to answer your question, Alderman, yeah, we do work with County Board Supervisor Decker and the Regional Transit Coalition. So we are part of those efforts. One of the reasons that I really wanted to showcase those commuting patterns is because that's an area of focus for us to understand where the commuters are coming from already. So there is a large subset that's coming from the city of Milwaukee. If we dive back to those commuting patterns, they're coming in. 705 or so are coming in every day, but they're passing several municipalities on the way to get to Oconomowoc, right? And so we need to dive in, right? This is great. We need to dive into what's happening here to get them here, but I also want to see what's coming in from the other counties as well. And so we do have Sewer Pack diving into the data so that I can hand that over to Bob Duffy in your Economic Development Department to start looking and seeing, are we able to pull workforce from some of our other neighboring counties as well, of just the city of Milwaukee? If a pilot program like that were to work, doesn't mean it just has to live with Milwaukee. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Alderman Ellis.
It stated that you were an advocate for the bike underpass project. How did you support the bike underpass project? How are you supporting it?
Well, quite honestly, we learned about the project directly from the mayor when we came to a meeting with him, and he said it was the most important issue at the time that he wanted us to work, that you wanted our support on. So we went and we contacted the county and really dove in and talked to them about how important it was to the city, and I believe that it helped nudge things along.
Any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate the update, and I hope the audience enjoyed some of the information that you presented. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
So we're going to move on to the public comment section, individual comments. And what we'd like to do is I'll call your name, would like you to come up to the podium, and please state your name, your address, and what municipality or village or city you live in. Also, during that time, you have 3 minutes, and this is a one-way opportunity for you to share your thoughts on any topic with the council. It's not a two-way dialogue. The council will be debating some of the things that are on the agenda later in the program. You're welcome to stay. But we're going to try to stay pretty tight. We have a large number of people that want to comment, which is great. But we're going to try to stay pretty tight to the 3 minutes. If you're starting to go over the 3 minutes, I'll just ask you if you could please wrap up. Please don't take it personally. We do definitely want to hear everything that you have to say. So we're going to start off with Kathleen Hefner.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
If you could state your address and the city,
409
please.
North Lake Road, Oconomowoc, City of Oconomowoc.
Great. Welcome.
I'd like to talk tonight about the Rockwell project, but I first want to narrow in on one specific aspect of this project. My family moved to Oconomowoc in 2000, and at the time, Little Vittles was a family-owned grocery store, and Century was still in the location. And when those businesses left, I felt very strongly that it left a void in this downtown area to have walkable, bikeable market shopping for just basic items. And it has been a dream of mine to kind of fill that void and have another downtown market available to the residents. So pre-COVID, when Jim's Pro Shop went out of business, I started meeting with Judy Schulte and was looking at renovating that Pro Shop space and creating a market there. Unfortunately, when contractors started coming in, it was apparent that the building was, in disarray, bad repair, and was going to need a lot of work. What still attracted me to the location, though, was that Judy shared with me that originally, historically, was the trading post for Oconomowoc. Later went on to become Laurelburg Hardware Store, and that space just holds and has always provided that service for the community. So I feel very strongly about that location. So when I learned that the Rockwell project was coming in, one of the conversations that we had was having some of that space be available for a market, which I, again, really feel is something that this community needs. To comment on the project as a whole, I think that the design was very thoughtful. I think it holds true to the historic kind of vibe that we have down here and that we appreciate as downtown residents. And I've heard some comments about the parking and the 5th floor and all of these kind of negative comments. I really feel like I want to focus on what that project is bringing on the ground level. It's bringing extra parking, it's bringing in public bathrooms, it's bringing a warming house, things that the entire community can use, not just people who purchase condos in that building are going to benefit from. And again, to have a market in that space along with these other amenities, I just feel is going to be a huge asset to the community as a whole.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maureen Stapleton.
Hi there. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Everybody for being here.
Yeah.
This is what the community is about, people, having people that care about something. And I think that
I'm sorry, I need to have you state your address and what city
boy.
you live in. Sorry. I'm hoping after a couple of them, well, you don't have to say it again.
Anybody would catch on? Yeah, no. 128 West Wisconsin Avenue, Maureen Stapleton. So I was going to start out with the 1970s in downtown Oconomowoc. Well, we're going to skip all that. But just let me say, it was awful. It was terrible. There wasn't anybody downtown. Half of the stores were closed. It was just going downhill, and I know it because I was the chamber president, and I couldn't get anybody to replace me for about 8 years because it didn't get any better. It was still, but then stuff started to happen, and you saw some of the numbers on the screen tonight. We have a very brilliant, viable place because people keep wanting to come here. And I think part of that is because our downtown's getting more vibrant with people and businesses and whatnot. But I think that there's some, the idea that suddenly in the last, I don't know, let's say 8 years, we have more people living downtown because we have, you know, a number of places that house people. And that's what you need. You need that base of people because they don't leave in the winter. They're here all year round, and they're supporting our stores. And it just creates a vibrancy. People love to feel like they're with other people when they're walking around, and it just creates more excitement. And I think that's what's bringing more people as far as our new businesses to the city of Oconomowoc. And it just is all a positive thing. And I think that's why having Rockwell and more people who will come down those steps and they'll go up and down the street and they'll spend money and they'll bring relatives and they'll bring friends. And then we're gonna be up here saying, okay, lock the door. We don't want any more people because they're spending way too much money and now we can't get into a restaurant. My God, we gotta wait 20 minutes. Can you imagine it? But for any case, you get the idea. And I just have to also say, I just laugh, or smile at least, when people say, oh, and if they, you know, take down the building and put a condo up there, you're not gonna see the lake. Well, hell, I'm across the street in my office and I live there. I haven't seen that. I can't look through the bar and see the water. I can't look through what was Schulte's and see the water. So that argument kind of falls on the other side for me. But for any case, I'm just proud of Oconomowoc, and I'm just glad I'm not the chamber president anymore because it's just doing a fine job on its own, and a lot of that is because we have a good city council and we have a lot of people who care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Jeffers?
Good evening. My name's Bob Jeffers. I live at 515 Greenland Avenue in Oconomowoc.
You guys all heard that? He did it right? Okay.
Because he's in my district.
My wife Lynn and I both, we live on Fowler Lake, and we're looking very hopeful and forward to a beautiful building that we're going to be able to look at. We won't see it in its entirety from our home, but we'll see the night lights. And just walking around the lake like everybody does in Oconomowoc, it's going to be nice to see a beautiful building instead of what's there now. But because we're limited to 3 minutes, I'm going to kind of focus in. I've been talking to a lot of people, a lot of neighbors, a lot of people I run into in town, and just kind of get their feel for it. And I haven't found anybody that doesn't love the looks of the building. They think it's going to be a great addition to downtown Oconomowoc. The only thing I do hear is the height of the building. They're saying, well, you know, don't you think it's too high? And I said, well, it's not like the Lone Ranger. It's not going to be the only 5-story building in Oconomowoc. I went for a walk the other day, and just especially zeroing in on the Isthmus, Draper Hall is 6 stories with their first floor parking, and keep in mind Rockwell's proposed to be 5-story. LaBelle Shores is 5 stories. Lake Shore Club is 5 stories. Rockwell's 5 stories, and what Rockwell also has is the addition of green space with Village Green and the lake on the other side of the building. It's going to feel much more spacious. It's not going to be a building jammed in between other buildings. They're not on the Isthmus, but if you look at Eagles Landing, that's 6 stories. The park, both of the park buildings are 6 stories. If you look at the lakeside, because they're exposed, people think they're 5-story because that's all you see from the road, but technically they're probably 80 feet tall. The other thing I'd like to add, with the condominiums, there's obviously a huge demand for them. They sell out right away. I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to consider that might be a pretty good life living in the city of Oconomowoc in a nice condominium. And the other thing is the tax base that it's going to create for the city. Just the general clientele of the condo owners are generally older couples. Children aren't living at home. They're not going to be stressing the school system, but they're going to be paying a lot of property taxes. So I'm definitely in favor of it. My wife's in favor of it, which she'll speak for herself, but I think it's going to be a beautiful addition to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're up to Linda Jeffers.
Linda Jeffers, same address, 515 Greenland Avenue. I live in District 1. I do think the project is an absolute plus, and I'm hoping it moves forward. I have been on social media and have been seeing, you know, different comments out there, and I understand, you know, some of the points that people have made. But I think there is a misunderstanding in regards to some of the things that they are pointing out too. But I wanted to say to Maureen and our first speaker and to my husband, I think you all really brought up some wonderful points, so I won't repeat any of that stuff. But I do want to speak to the councilman, because when I was in high school, my father was an alderman. And I grew up in Port Washington, Wisconsin, and we had a marina, which was beautiful, but it actually was just a mooring. It wasn't a marina where we had slips or anything like that. And up comes this project of putting in a marina where there were slips, and the economic value is what, you know, my dad was looking at, because of course he had to, you know, listen to his constituents, but he also had to think about what was best for the city. And I remember, I was only in high school, and granted this is over 50 years ago, it was a long, long time ago. I'm in my mid-60s now, so it was a long time ago. But he got hate mail. We got phone calls that were terrible. They were just nasty. We weren't even allowed. I mean, I'm a teenager. I want to answer the phone. And we had the dial-up phone on the wall. But we couldn't even answer the phone because it might be somebody that, you know, was against the project. Well, 50 years ago is when the project took place. It did pass, and my father continued to be an alderman. He did, you know, get voted in even past that. But last year or the year before, when it turned 50 years old, it was considered the most important thing that was ever passed economically for the city of Port Washington. So I know each of you, it's a hard decision, these decisions to make, but I think you need to think of what it really brings to the city as a whole. So that's my main comment.
I've sailed into that port and have been there, and I've watched that growth. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, thanks.
On to John Kuntz.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. John Coots, representing MSI General, P.O. Box 7, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Been a long time member of Oconomowoc. That's how you get P.O. Box 7. So, but just wanted to say that on behalf of our team and the developer, we are committed to producing a project that the city can be proud of. Our reputation here in the community for the last 65 years has been built on being transparent, being honest, being forthright, and we've tried really hard throughout this whole process that brought us to this meeting tonight to do that, and we're committed to continuing to do that as well. And we do appreciate all the comments, both for and against the project, because it's really helped our team be better in putting this project together. And so just as a matter of putting that on public record at this part of the meeting tonight, we wanted to make that statement for you. Right. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Mankey.
Sharon Mankey, 507 South Lapham Street, City of Oconomowoc. But I'm here tonight representing the German Christmas Market. The Board of Directors of the German Christmas Market has had the opportunity to sit down and meet with Jeff Screama of Rockwell Development to discuss the potential changes that are going to be made to the Village Green on their behalf. I just want to say that the board of the German Christmas Market is very much in favor of the changes that are going to be made to the Village Green to accommodate the market, our market, as well as all the other events that are being held on the Village Green and that belong downtown. And I believe that these potential changes will help to ensure the success of all the events that are held downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Bertrand.
Council, Mayor, thanks for letting us speak. Mike Bertrand, I live on Anchorage Road in the town of Oconomowoc, but I also own a business in Eagles Landing in the city of Oconomowoc. You know, the people that have spoken in the past, in the name of trying not to be redundant, the other people that have spoken prior to me have, you know, done a very good job taking a lot of my material away. So I'll be very brief here, but and just in talking about some of the things that I've heard the people that are opposed to the project, and I want to just maybe address some of that because the developers and Jeff have not been able to have a, you know, so I don't like this. Well, let me tell you why you might if you heard a rebuttal to it. So some of the things that I've heard in negative commentary on the project would be, you know, the parking expansion into the Village Green. You know, there is hasn't been a chance to be thoroughly explained to the public, I think, is that all in all, when some of the redundancy in the sidewalks gets removed and the improvements in the green, that there'll be a net gain in the green space by taking up the additional 18 feet that the developers are looking for. Besides that, when you expand a parking lot, you expand a parking lot. If there's something that downtown Oconomowoc needs is additional parking. So those 12 parking spots would be a welcome addition. I think if you ask anybody, they would agree with that. Furthermore, right now, if you're attempting to leave the parking lot, because of the way the configuration is with the drive leaving the parking facing south and then the drive going east and west up against the building, while I'm heading into work and I'm facing south at the stoplight, waiting for the light to turn green, I've seen numerous times where somebody has been leaving that parking lot and somebody has been walking by with their stroller or somebody has been jogging and both people have to come to an immediate stop, or actually I've heard tires squawk because they have had to slam on the brakes. I think by moving the egress to that parking lot south, that additional 18 feet, which would then create parking on both sides of it, it's going to certainly increase the sight line for people using the sidewalk in front of what would be the proposed project. Moving on to that, I think the only other thing that I can talk about besides the height, I'll finish with the height restriction. But I think there's a misunderstanding when it comes to the TIF. Some of the opposition that I've heard is they're thinking that their taxes are going to go up because they're going to have to be digging in. They're going to have to dig into their pocket to help pay for a private project. And I think if there's a chance for somebody to maybe explain to get it out there again as to how a TIF really works, that is, we're basically taking future revenues that the project would be bringing in to pay for the amenities that the project would bring to the community, such as the public bathrooms, the extension of the boardwalk, the green improvements. And then getting to the height, I understand, being in business, you have to be able to recap your investment. And for the developers,
I'm going to have you wrap up, please.
they've got a magic number in mind where they have to be able to sell so much X amount of square foot in order to pay for the project. If 5 stories is how they come up with their number, then I think I'm all in favor for that. Thanks.
Thank you. And just for the community to know, later in the council meeting today, there will be TIF 101. It's on the agenda. So, wow, you're reading our minds. Thank you. John Suttner.
Hello, everybody. John Suttner, W375 and 7833 Tamarack Court, town of Oconomowoc. Also own several businesses in the city of Oconomowoc. I want to start by saying one word, and that's forward. As we look to the future, we have to move forward. If we're looking back, we can remember the great times, but we have to go forward. If we're not going forward, we're standing still. I had an opportunity on Sunday to drive through a friend of mine's old community called Cudahy. There's all but nothing left. Everything's closed. It's scary because you know why? They didn't go forward. So everybody understand one word, forward. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Ed Hines, I'm not sure if I can read this. Ed H-I-E-S, Heis? I'm sorry, sir, if I've pronounced it wrong.
I can't write, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Ed Meese. I live at 515 Westfield Way in Pewaukee. And I'm kitchen challenged. I eat out every night, and I come to Oconomowoc 6 nights a week to have dinner. You have a wonderful downtown. And everybody I hear talk about this 5-story building, you've got enough of them around. One more is not going to make any difference. So I'll be very brief, but you have a wonderful downtown, and I hope you approve this project.
Thank you. And you can always come 7 days a week if you'd like.
Pardon me?
7 days a week, you know, you're always
Well, I
welcome.
got to give some money to some other communities, you know. Thank you.
Thank you for your patronage. Let's move on to Mark Justman.
Hi, I'm Mark Justman. I'm originally my whole family's from Watertown, but I won't admit it. My cousin happened to marry the brother of the mayor of Watertown for the last 30 years, so that gives me license to criticize and for his lack of vision and so forth and so on. But I tell everybody that I meet I'm from Oconomowoc, and I was thrown out of the house at 19 by my belt and my shirt by my dad because, of course, at 19 I knew everything, and he knew very little. And from there, I ended up following a girlfriend down to Pompano Beach, and then from there I followed another girlfriend up to Tallahassee, where
I'm a little
went
worried
to
on where
Florida
this is
State.
going.
And I eventually got my degree at FSU with a major in real estate. And then I came back here for a little stint. I told my dad, you know, I graduated and everything. I know more than you now anyways. And lo and behold, I get a job 8 days out of college with American Appraisal, downtown Milwaukee. And they eventually transferred me to Los Angeles in '79. And I just got back in 2014, 35 years to the day later. I'm what's known as an MAI designation, which is pretty popular in the IRS world, the banking world, the investment banking world, the litigation world, and et cetera, et cetera. I've probably one of the only guys you'll ever meet who has officially worked for the FBI, the Department of U.S. Treasury, the IRS, the FDIC, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, the FAA, the Department of Interior. Most of that was through American Appraisal. And I even did 2 jobs in Milwaukee to boot for the Vatican, one of which was for Billy Mitchell, who donated his cottage in West Allis to the Vatican, and they consequently built an assisted living facility there. Anyways,
I'm going to have you kind of come and wrap up. We're getting close to the end of your time,
Okay.
and I want to make sure
I'm
we
just
hear your
here
message.
to just tell you who I am, and I'm an advocate of what's going on. I'm right around the corner from Gene Stapleton's place. I own the Fresh Baked, the green and white building right next to Eagles Landing. She knows we see each other in the garbage area like often. But anyways, I'm a pro for Jeff and the boys, and I think it's going to do an outstanding thing to the community, and that's all I have to say. So
Okay, thank you.
thanks a lot.
Sarah Ninman. I'm waiting for you to follow that one, Sarah. Thank you, sir.
I know I'm a regular here, but hi, Sarah Ninman, N64 Woodcrest Drive, Town. I'm going to speak on 2 behalfs here, one for the Downtown Business District President, but first, Sarah Ninman, I just want to say how I'm in favor of the project. I think it would be a great project, just a little bit different perspective from what everybody else said. I was sitting around our pool deck the other day with a bunch of young 20-year-old kids that are my kids and their friends, and I was surprised that 10 out of the 12 want to move back to the area, which I thought was really cool, and raise their families, which is a lot to say of what we're doing and how we're moving forward. And when we talked about the project, I had the pamphlet, and they looked through it and thought it was really cool and how fun it would be to come back and be able to live in something like that. And when we talked about the height restrictions, just really simple. One of the kids is like, well, if you're standing in front of it, you can't see over 50 feet, you can't see over 70 feet. Like, what's the difference? So I thought that was a pretty neat perspective for him to have. The Downtown Business District, again, all the board unanimously supports this project. And they are definitely in favor of seeing the uniqueness of it come forward and what it has to offer, specifically the extension of the boardwalk, being next to the Village Green for a lot of the events. I just want to go off a little topic, which we're open to discussing everything, is just going to throw in there the bathroom situation again, how we definitely see the need for both bathrooms. It's going to be great with all the added traffic to have the Rockwell, but how much in need that we are of our bathrooms on the Village Green as well. I know it takes over a little bit of a mulch bed, a little bit of the sidewalk. We've created the footprint to be a little bit smaller. We've had different topics of conversation. One with Craig was if we made it seasonal, and how that $30,000 to $40,000 may be able to be taken off of there, and how important we feel that that is as well. So want to keep continuing to advocate for that additional bathroom. Neil and I walked around the lake today, and I remember when the boardwalk kind of came through and everybody started coming through a couple years ago, we had 2 garbage cans, maybe 4 garbage cans out there. We counted 12 today, so that just tells you the increased traffic. I know garbage and bathrooms aren't the same thing, but they kind of are. So I think that using, as many people that are coming in and as much as it is getting utilized, I know it seems that a couple garbage cans or a couple restrooms are going to be enough, but really we are bringing an excessive amount of people in, and we really love that, especially for our downtown businesses. I own 2. I got one of the grants from the economic development thing, so I am living proof that they do give you money, and it does help us. So I have 2 of those businesses that are thriving downtown, but I definitely see the increased traffic on both ends of the street, one being in the Avenue Square and closer to the Village Green, and how we need both of those bathrooms. But I hope you approve Rockwell. We definitely are in favor of it as a board of your downtown district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Neil Ninman. Okay.
You don't get 6 minutes.
So this is Neil Ninman
And his own card.
and Jim Wood. If you could introduce yourselves individually.
Numbers, alphabet soup, Rolling River Court, Town of Oconomowoc.
Neil Ninman, Woodcrest Drive, Town of Oconomowoc, and also both members of the Oconomowoc School Board.
So just here representing the school district tonight, and just appreciative of thoughtful growth and thoughtful development, and how everybody kind of works together in this ecosystem that is a community to bring together growth, and then growth affects the schools, and then schools grow to attract more people, and so on and so forth down the line. So really appreciative of that.
Yeah, building off of that, opportunity is always a great thing to have in a community, and there are communities around us that don't have the opportunities that we have. So I think be mindful of that. We have a school district that is thriving, but unfortunately, the numbers of students are flat or at times declining. We're going to learn more about that later this year after we get a report. So ever more popular and present is the ability to pay for things in our district. If you have declining enrollment, which many of us in this whole region do, for lots of different reasons, that money still has to come from somewhere. And it comes from growth opportunities. We're seeing a lot of it out by the interstate. This is another opportunity in our community to see growth, stack some taxpayers on top of each other. I think it's a smart way of doing it, definitely. And also as a husband of a business owner in this community, and we can see that helping our business, helping our communities, businesses around us. I think it's something that we need to strongly consider and approve. Thank you.
Yep. So if you guys come up with anything else, like Neil mentioned, as we come together with our numbers this fall, I believe it is, yeah, we'll get together with you and kind of share information and make sure that we're all growing together.
Great. And just a hats off to the Oconomowoc School District. They have been working very hard to engage with the city in things they're doing and what we're doing. And just thank you both gentlemen for coming and representing the school district. Craig Schuffelbein.
My name is Craig Scheffelbein, as you just said. I'm not Johnny Velvet, that's my evil twin. I live at 4636 Lake Club Circle, and though I'm in the village of Oconomowoc Lake, I think you all know that I am, you'd be hard pressed to find a bigger advocate of developing this community culturally and economically. And though when I heard about Rockwell, and I was a little bit about a skeptic, there was a lot of emotion and short of decisional data. And as I look at architectural integrity and data and the impact to the community from the boardwalk and the bathrooms and the community space and all of those things, I became a huge advocate of this. And you know what they said, I don't need to spend a lot of time other than I'm happy to support this. And I know you have a difficult decision, but I hope you do that. And when I see you all individual, you know, I always say, thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Gene Gosling, I'm not sure if I got the whole last name correct, sir.
Hi, I'm Gene Goslin, 128 West Wisconsin Avenue, and I'm just here to talk on behalf of the Rockwell project. I just see it. My wife and I moved here about 3 years ago to Oconomowoc from Heartland, and it's just such a vibrant community, lots of growth, positive all the way around, continuing improvements left and right, and this Rockwell project, we just see it as another one of those, including the commercial sites that are going to be part of that project and improvement, addition to the boardwalk that goes around that people in the community as well as visitors to Oconomowoc use all the time, and this will just enhance that whole feel right down and around the village green. So I just hope that you're all in support of the project as well, because it's going to be a good thing for Oconomowoc overall, as you've heard it from a lot of people now, so thank you.
Thank you. Dave Mankey.
Greetings, Mayor and Council members. My name is Dave Mankey. I live at 459 Wood Street, City of Oconomowoc, Aldermanic District Number 3, and I am a member of the CDA. I'm writing you to show my support for the Rockwell project located adjacent to the city green space. As a member of the CDA, I am granted the opportunity to give my professional input on residential and commercial development within the community. Today, I write this as a resident. The City of Oconomowoc has gone through incredible strides to ensure the growth of our community continues and benefits the community at large. While the Rockwell Partner Project at its face value is just another condo project, it's not just that, it is more. The area that it exists in right now is barely functioning. The buildings are an eyesore, not completely usable. They do not grant public access to Fowler Lake's west shore, and without serious repair and financial investment could become a hazard to the community at large. The buildings also sit adjacent to our beautiful city green space. It's time to change that look, and Rockwell does that. When I was shown the presentation materials for the project, I was visibly excited. From a visual standpoint, the building is stunning. Finally, a newly designed building that does not try to rewrite the architectural feel of what our community already has and cherishes. And I've been part of some of those projects. It will serve as an inspiration for others to follow suit. I have heard many comment on the height of the building, that it's just too tall, it blocks the view of the lake, etc. I beg to ask of those, what view is being blocked? I'm 6 feet tall. The typical single-story building is 12 feet tall. No matter what is built there, the view will be blocked. The proposed building is going to top out at 70 feet, which is higher than is allotted for the site. But a 70-foot building can be built directly across the street. While I did have a lot of heartburn about the height, I have to ask myself, why not here if it's okay there, 30 feet away? Again, at face value, it's just a condo project. But again, it's more. By allowing the project to move ahead, the boardwalk will continue to the west shore. Fowler will become something that we currently do not have access to. There will be a warming house in the ground level open to the public. Yes, public access to a private building. And restrooms, public restrooms. I've been the person who has sleeked into Roots going, yeah, I'm not buying anything, but I really got to go to the bathroom. Not anymore. All the business owners can rejoice. During the winter, there will be a ramp so you can easily access and safely go to the lake and skate. With the growth of the winter festivals, this is a win. Something like this will help make us a year-round attraction. The project also adds parking spaces, revamps the walkways and the green in order to create a cleaner green space. And yes, there is the increased tax revenue. I will even take this one step further. MSI, the general contractor on the project, is local. The designer of the building is local as well. Why is that important? They have skin in the game. This is their community too. Why would they want to damage their reputation and their community? I've lived in this community 17 years. I've walked into the existing building once. I doubt very much there will be a second time. In my opinion, this project fits what the city outlined in their development plan, and it provides benefits to the community at large that another developer may or would not offer. I've seen what this community can do when we band together. OHS Class of 22 graduation ceremony. I support the Rockwell Partner Project. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristen and Wayne Eichman, I don't know if you want to come together or do it individually. It's up to you.
I'm gonna guess they're gonna come together.
We're just going to be brief because everybody has such great comments. So Kristen Eichman, 215 East Pleasant Street, City of Oconomowoc.
Wade Eichman, the same.
So, yeah, very much in favor. Everybody has had some great comments today, really mimicking ours, so we'll keep it brief. We're in full support of the Rockwell Development Project. We feel it fully serves and would support this community and the growth, which really seems to be a theme of tonight. It does so in several ways. Parking in particular, given all the wonderful festivals that the city holds. Public restrooms, as somebody with a small bladder, I'm telling you, we really need more, especially for families with small children and to take some of the pressure off of the businesses. Outdoor lakeside dining, additional boardwalk seating would be a welcome addition. The design is beautiful. It's in keeping with the rest of the town and the architecture. As referenced in the initial presentation, the population is growing, and I believe with a growing community, development and improvements are critical to a thriving community.
Yeah. It just seems like a no-brainer. It's what's there right now is not attractive. And if the renderings, if that's what the building's going to look like, it's beautiful, and it's just going to add to our community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mary Claire Lancer.
Mary Claire Lancer, Lancer Public Affairs in New Berlin. I just counted today that there have been 301 encounters with residents, whether it's door-to-door or these meetings that we've had. But in case our team hasn't done enough to engage and inform the public, I would like to announce 3 upcoming public presentations to be held at the community center. These will be Tuesday, July 12th, Thursday, July 14th, and Monday, July 18th, all 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The format will be a presentation by Jeff and the team, followed by question and answer. All the questions will be taken until there are no more, and the answers will be clear and documented. Additionally, I'm wondering if we could ask that the presentation booklet be posted on the city's website. We would also like to do our own website because it's just really not right if people think that they don't have the right information and are making judgments based on misinformation. So we'd like to make sure that that is cleared up as soon as possible. Because development of this blighted site isn't just for our team, it is to be a source of pride for the entire community. And even though there's been a good deal of outreach, I'm hoping that even more outreach is how we all get there together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the last blue card that I have. Have I missed anyone? And would anyone else like to make a public comment at this time? So with no additional comments, we're going to move on to the agenda, and I just want to applaud all of you for coming in and sharing your viewpoint. It's very much appreciated. I'd like to entertain a motion. for the consent agenda items 6A and 6B.
Rozak, so moved.
Mulder, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're going to move on to further on into the agenda. Committee reports, protection and welfare. Consider and act on Resolution 22-R3044, granting new 2022-2023 Class A fermented malt beverage license to the Sausage House.
So moved, Ellis.
So we have a in favor and a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
On to utilities. Consider act on Resolution 22-R3042, declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing. If you could lead us through that, I think it's good to bring that information out to the public. Thank you, Lori.
Sure. So in conjunction with the planning and construction of new well number 8, the city is looking to apply for a loan through the state, Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. We do that because they have good interest rates for cities for projects like this. So a part of that application is a couple of resolutions that you have in front of you tonight. One of them is the reimbursement resolution, which is the one that the mayor just announced. And we use that so that we can have expenses like engineering and planning expenses before the construction of the loan or of the well and before the loan proceeds actually get here. With the reimbursement resolution, once the loan is closed, we can reimburse ourselves for those costs. So funds that weren't capital funds that we're using ahead of time.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Sullivan Murray?
That's fine.
Like to entertain a motion, please?
So moved, Ellis.
Second, Kavieski.
Any further discussions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
On to consider act on Resolution 22-R3041, designating authorized representatives to file applications for financial assistance from the State of Wisconsin Environmental Improvement Fund.
This is the second resolution in conjunction with the same well project. This is for the application to the state. This authorizes the city administrator and the finance director to sign documents for the application for loan funds and any other grant funding available for this project.
Like to open it for discussions or comments? Like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Ellis.
Mulder, second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye. Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
On to our next item, consider act on the final plat for Airwood subdivision, Phase 1, creating 14 lots located at the Oconomowoc Parkway and Wynwood Road. Mr. Gallo.
Good evening. Before you is an application for the final plat for Arrowwood subdivision. This is a document that creates 14 lots. The Plan Commission did recommend it. The average lot size is just under a third of an acre in size. It is consistent with the zoning and the land use plan. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gallo?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, if you'd like to make a comment, go ahead.
So this is what we talked about a week or two ago, that you had talked with the contractor about the issues that we've been having with them?
Yes, that part of the discussion is not on the agenda, though, for this.
That's fine.
So if you'd like to make a comment at Alderman comments, you can, but I can say comfortably it's being addressed. Like to entertain a motion, please?
Rozak, so moved.
Second, Ellis.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
That's the loudest aye I've ever heard.
Because he got made fun of for the last one.
Next item, consider act on the certified survey map for Olympia Fields dividing one lot into four, located in the southeast corner of Summit Avenue and Olympia Fields Drive. Mr. Gallo.
We have a certified survey map application that divides one lot into four. This is for commercial purposes. It's right along Highway 67. They do have some prospective tenants that are interested in the sale of, purchase of these lots, so we're happy to bring this forward. The Plan Commission did review it, and they recommended approval of the certified survey map.
I'd like to open it for discussions, questions for Mr. Gallo. Mr. Alderman Rozak.
Mr. is fine.
Mr.
We expected that some of these lots would start getting split up for the development, correct?
Yes.
And lots would start being sold off to commercial developers for those spots, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Alderman Mulder.
So as I reviewed this, Lot 2 is 4 acres. Should we expect that that eventually gets parsed out into additional lots as well, or do you think this is the last slicing of this parcel?
Oh, Lot 2 will end up getting subdivided in the future. It's just a certified survey map, you're only allowed up to 4 lots per document, so then they'll redivide that Lot 2 up. They're taking these out for prospective buyers, and then they're creating them on as-needed basis, so.
Any other comments for Mr. Gallo? Like to entertain a motion?
So moved, Ellis.
Kavieski, second.
Any further discussions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Under our next item, consider act on the extraterritorial certified survey map for the Young Trust dividing one lot into two, located at West 393, North 6056 Mary Lane, Town of Oconomowoc. Mr.
We have
Gallo.
an application for a certified survey map. This is not in the city of Oconomowoc, it's in the town of Oconomowoc. It falls within our extraterritorial review jurisdiction. It's a 1 acre lot. They experienced a fire on this. They've since raised that house. The owners of the property would like to build on the south lot, which is Lot 2, and sell off the northern lot. It's 1 acre in size. They're going to divide it into 2 half-acre lots. Plan Commission and staff sees no issues with this. Plan Commission did recommend approval.
Questions for Mr. Gallo? Like to entertain a motion, please?
So moved, Mulder.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any comments, questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Gallo. On to new business. Consider act on ordinance 22-01035, creating section 2.019 of the Oconomowoc, City of Oconomowoc Municipal Code relating to council agendas. Remember, this is set up as a first reading for your consideration. Do you want to take that, Mr. Fry, please?
Thank you. Yes, so this item was at the Committee of the Whole. We briefly discussed it. It was decided to move it forward with some adjustments, and I had worked with Alderman Rozak on the revised document that's before you tonight. We just simplified it down a little bit. It walks through the same process of Alderman wants an item on the agenda. They could meet with either myself or the mayor to discuss it. If for some reason it's not put onto an agenda, then at a council meeting during the comments from Alderman, they could request it. And if it's seconded by another Alderman, then it would get put onto a future agenda based on timing of staff's ability to gather all the information that's necessary for that.
So I'd like to open it up for comments or questions for Mr. Fry. Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to the mayor and Administrator Fry for working with me on this agenda change. I think it's a positive change for democracy and for us moving items along, not necessarily with this mayor, this administrator, but I've been on council for almost 9 years, and there have been past mayors who just won't put anything on an agenda that we ask to have looked at. And it's a way for us to be able to push something that our constituents are asking for us to do. So I think it's a positive. It's something a lot of the neighboring communities have, and I appreciate you guys working with us on it. And I think this final version's simple, gets to the point, and does what we need it to do. So,
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Ellis.
Rozak, second.
Any further discussion or comments?
Waiving the second reading?
Oh,
Second
yeah.
reading?
Yes. Go ahead and waive the second reading.
Okay. And it's still the same, the second, Alderman
Yes.
Rozak? Okay. Any further comments or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is a presentation at TIF 101. This is because this is also a streamed council meeting. It's available to the public. We want to make sure we help to educate the public and also to keep us on our toes as council members. So.
And you're asking me to do that?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Will you please go ahead?
Sure. You know, we often do this to orient council members, but as also what was mentioned in the public comment, TIF, tax incremental financing, is a misunderstood tool of how we use it to be able to move forward goals and opportunities for our community. So wanted to share that, not both as a reminder to some of you, because maybe it's been some time since you've seen it. We'll also talk about some of the successes we've had as a community in using the tool to improve, reach our goals, as well as improve quality of life amenities for the community. So tax incremental financing was authorized in 1975 in accordance with state statutes. Currently, there are over 1,000 active TIF districts in Wisconsin and over 400 communities. So I'll use terms somewhat interchangeably. Tax incremental financing is the tool itself. And a tax increment district is essentially the area in which is created that establishes that area. So is that tool to stimulate development as well as redevelopment? It's a method for us to finance infrastructure and public improvements. We use it as a municipality, as you guys all understand, in budget times, where we have a limited opportunity to leverage things. It's an alternative financing method for us to accomplish those goals without impacting the existing tax base, only using the district area. We've used it both for greenfield development, and I'll talk about the different types of districts, as well as to rehabilitate deteriorating areas and eliminate blight, which we've talked a little bit about tonight and we'll continue to talk about, as well as promote mixed use and industrial development throughout the community. What's required as part of statute is development would not occur without the creation of this such district. There's something called the but-for test that is required as we do that. The economic development benefits of the TID have to do with increased employment, business and property value, as well as the ability for the project to compensate for those improvements that we need within the district. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is enhance the value of real estate in our community by using the tool. And another element is all TIDs cannot exceed 12% of the city's total. Currently, we as a municipality, we have TIF 4, 5, 6, and 7 that are currently open, so 4 open. And we currently are just over 3%, 3.15 if I remember correctly, as we've calculated that, so we're well below what our statutory requirement is to be able to do that. So essentially how it works is we provide public improvements and assistance to attract the development. And essentially the way it works is the tax district that benefits shares in the cost to assist in financing those improvements. So that's the important aspect. It's the district that contributes to that. So that increment generated pays for the assistance for those projects. It's not the overall tax base, it's the increment generated within those areas. And to demonstrate that, obviously some people are more visual, so this is one way to identify it. If you look at the area Under the green line, those are taxes collected for that value for all taxing entities. When we create a district, we establish a base value. That base value does not change for those taxing entities. When we create the district through a project plan, all the value, that increased increment, we as a city obtain all of the tax dollars from that increased increment to be able to pay for those obligations that we've agreed to build as part of an infrastructure or part of an agreement with a private investment or a private development. Currently, again, also misunderstood, everybody, the clerks in the finance department will agree, whenever people pay their taxes, they grumble at the amount of money that gets paid. We are a small portion of that overall element as it relates to the city of Oconomowoc. When we create the TIF district, we're actually able to collect all of those values into our ultimate TIF district. So obviously, we are not the largest share. Another way to show it, once we have an assessed value, in this instance, again, we've done some of these where you've removed structures. The existing property taxes stay the same for those underlying jurisdictions, being the city, the school district, the county, and the technical school district. That's what makes up the Joint Review Board, who makes the decision of creating the TIF district. They continue to remain and obtain those values, that tax base. We, through that obligation, agree to do investments in that area to encourage and improve development, as we've talked about. Oftentimes, those are at considerable expense, to be able to bring those utility elements as well as quality of life elements to a project. We use that revenue from the increased value or increment to pay back our debt. Once that happens, all of that value comes back to all of the additional taxing entities once it's closed. So eligibility from a TIF standpoint, we can do projects within within the district and within a half a mile of it. All of those projects must benefit the actual TIF district. Most often used eligible projects become infrastructure, land acquisition or demolition, site development, development incentives, marketing and promotion, as well as administrative costs we may have to set up the district or utilize from a municipal standpoint as it relates to staff. Several types of TIF. We've used most of these. An industrial TIF, 50% of the area needs to be suitable and zoned for industrial development. Maximum life of 20 years with an expenditure period for 15. Blight elimination TID. This is similar to what we'll be talking about tonight with the Rockwell project. Typically downtowns, 50% of the area must be declared blight. Requires a formal blight designation, both from the Community Development Authority and from the City Council. We need to notify those landowners. This blight elimination TIDs are the most difficult to succeed in, so that's why it's viewed as a maximum life of 27 years to pay back those elements, as well as an expenditure period of 22 years. Rehabilitation and conservation is similarly 50% of the property must be suitable for rehabilitation or conservation. No more than 25% can be vacant. Again, notified property owners is a requirement. Maximum life of 27 years with a 22-year expenditure period. Mixed-use TIF must have multiple uses. No more than 35% can be residential. Maximum life of 20 years or an expenditure period of 15. The process to create a TIF district, we go through a process to determine the need, identify the type, identify the boundary. Those boundaries need to be physically described as well as mapped as it relates to that. Identify the individual projects. Oftentimes, actually all the time we've done them now, we perform an economic analysis, a third-party economic analysis. So oftentimes we've had Ehlers here performing that third-party economic analysis to ensure that the assumptions we have going into it, both from a projection standpoint and a project plan standpoint, all work. Creation of the project plan, talked a little bit about the Joint Review Board and convening that group. Again, the people who make and vote on this from the Joint Review Board are those taxing entities. So we have oftentimes, in this case, our Joint Review Board right now is the mayor. We have Dean Frederick from the Plan Commission is our citizen representative. We have the business services, Beth Sheridan from the Oconomowoc Area School District. We have Andrew County Department of Administration for Waukesha County is our voting member, as well as an individual from the Waukesha County Technical College. So those are the individuals who actually vote and bring that information forward. We do a public hearing as well as with the Plan Commission, and ultimately the council approves those project plans in order for them to move forward. And then in order for them to be enacted in law, the Joint Review Board needs to do that. So also to talk to the community a little bit about how we've used it. Oconomowoc has a very long, successful utilization of tax incremental financing districts, interestingly. Our first TIF district was downtown. So we have 2 of them that were downtown. So many of the things that were created back in 1981 were replaced 35 years later. So the length of the infrastructure, we used the tool twice to be able to do that. That area was established with a base value of $12.3 million. They used it for property assemblage. So the areas that you see as parking lots in our downtown, if you ever look at old pictures, there used to be houses behind this building. There used to be buildings in the middle of the parking lot on the south side. So the city used it to assemble that property to make those parking areas. They built the parking lots here in our downtown. They did our first streetscape improvement project. They built the old Fowler Lake wooden boardwalk and gazebo. So that's how that was built and financed. And the catalyst for the TIF district in downtown at that time was the redevelopment of the Avenue Square Mall. And for those who have been around a long time, there used to be a car dealership right across the street, and that's when the mall came. So they built around what used to be a car lot in the middle of our downtown. Project cost of $1.7 million. This TIF district actually closed in 1995, so 15 years, even though the ability was there to be able to do 27, because of its success, it closed in 15 years. Had a 10-fold return on investment for our community as it relates to value from the project cost versus the value, as the increment value increase was about $17.7 million. TIF number 2, Oconomowoc Corporate Center, so an industrial type TIF, a base value at that, created in 1990 with a base value of $5.3 million. Obviously, most of the business that occupy out there brought employment to our community. That was something the city was seeking in their plans and goals at that time. So it was 150 acres for office and industrial development, putting all the infrastructure in place to be able to support that growth as an employment center for us as a community, from all our public utilities as well as our public streets. Project costs about $13.9 million. This one closed in 2002 with an increment value of $122.7 million. So closed in 12 years with a 2,300% increase in property value from what it originally was. TIF district number 3, Paps Farms, created in 2001, base value of $6 million. Again, a lot of our utilization of the Paps Farms TIF was to bring utility infrastructure to that area in order to encourage growth. A lot of the infrastructure also supported other types of developments, like the building of a new school and a new YMCA, because once the utilities were there, it was able to support that.
So is the increment value increase, is that as of the date it closed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the other interesting thing about Paps Farms TIF, And some of you have been around long enough to remember this. The Paps Farms TIF actually could have closed in 13 years. Our Waukesha County representative at the time of the Joint Review Board required this project plan to close in 15 years. We had the ability to close this one potentially in 13 years. Because of the change in the economy and everything that was going on in our community at the time, we actually asked to keep it open for 15 years, which allowed about $6.3 million from Paps Farms donated increment to downtown, because we had a front-loaded infrastructure project in downtown Oconomowoc by reconstructing Wisconsin Avenue, buying real estate for a roundabout. So we were able to use the tool and the benefit in that area to actually help downtown as well. So it closed in 2014 as scheduled in 15 years, $180 million in value, about a 3,000% increase in total property value. Some of these, just to educate the community how we've used it more in redevelopment. 4, 5, 6 are downtown TIF districts. So again, downtown TID number 4 we used as part of the jurisdictional transfer process. When we reconstructed downtown back in 2008, so we created this district in 2001 in preparation for reconstruction. Base value of $12.3 million. We did use it from some property assemblage. We've reconstructed every parking lot that we own in downtown. We did the streetscaping in downtown as it related to Wisconsin Avenue reconstruction. We did the Village Green enhancements. So as many of you are aware, we did not own the lake frontage back behind the Village Green at that time. That was part of an assemblage project as well as creating the Village Green. So now the city owns lake frontage through this process that we do today, as well as provided redevelopment incentives to various projects. Like the Gateway, we did some public infrastructure. The Worthington, we did some public infrastructure incentives as well. But we do that. So $11.8 million in projects. We just finished our last project last year in the south parking lot. So this one is still an active TIF district. Increment value to date, $29 million. So we're projecting to close this one, Lori, 2 years. So again, some of the projects we were able to do, we actually provided a tax increment financing loan to help the Cornerstone. We leveraged our dollars to the investment he put into that building. Many people don't even remember what it looked like anymore. So that was a stark change. We've always tried to do that. Obviously, our largest project in the downtown TIF was the Village Green and the parking lots. TIF number 5 is West Wisconsin Avenue, where we saw some recent redevelopment. We are offering development incentives through a pay-go process. Pay-go, to explain that, we were providing an incentive, but only when the guaranteed value is delivered to the project. So they're actually being reimbursed through pay-go by their own increment they've generated. So that's how we're doing that process in these agreements. We've established the opportunity to do expanded business loans for North Main Street, parking reorganization and water access improvements. If you all recall, this is how we are financing a $1.5 million boat launch. So again, not to go to the property taxpayers, we're using increment from two projects that have guaranteed value to be able to pay for those types of quality of life improvements and offer them back here to the community. We leverage the TIF district in this area to realize our goal in our downtown plan of a lakefront path to connect North Main Street to City Beach as part of that as well. So total project cost just over $6 million. Increment value to date, $36 million based on the projects that we see there today. The other thing we did is we leveraged TIF district to match dollars with a community development investment grant. This was a project we didn't originally envision. It was part of our downtown plan, but we were able to use the increment through this to help assist this property owner in restoring this historic renovation of this project as part of our match to the Community Development Investment Grant, and that's what you see there today. All the units are sold. I mean, people talk about, you know, all of these units are sold. This was also an interesting one as it relates to, because of our, the but-for test, because of our involvement, likely translated to the developer providing, one, a restaurant on that development, because that's what the community was looking for. And number two, us being able to help support the development likely had something to do with that developer donating a unit to American Legion Post 91, who is the original owner of this property. Some people don't remember. This is the Park on Lac La Belle project, very similar. Originally, this project came to us, indicated that they did not need any assistance. That's how we were able to work through it and knew that they were going to need some subsurface investigation, vetted it through the third-party review process, and then leveraged that to be able to get the continuation of the path. Because that is something that they weren't willing to provide to us as a city in order for us to reach and obtain our goals. So we're very fortunate to be able to do that. TIF number 6, Pleasant Street, St. Paul redevelopment, Fire Lake Village, in the area on Wisconsin Avenue. Again, we used, it's currently in existence, development incentives, the opportunity for property acquisition, environmental remediation, parking expansion, Fire Lake shoreline improvements. So this is essentially how the boardwalk got paid for, was through development increment of redevelopment here in the downtown. Reconstructed Pleasant Street, as well as infrastructure in there, and streetscape in the streetscape enhancement along that popular walking path in our downtown. So we have the ability to create economic development loans. There's some other 7.9 million increment to date, just under 22 million. And we have a guarantee for the remainder as that project is full. From a retail standpoint, they've all been sold. All the residential units have been sold, all the commercial units have been sold. So, TIF 7, Olympia Fields. So this was a blight determination TIF we did just in let's see, I gotta look now. Been so long, 2020. Man, I would stand up here, right? We did traffic impact and engineering design to replace the private utility systems in this area, sewer, water, and electric. If you recall, we used this process to acquire 11.8 acre parcel for the public roadway entrance, which was a piece of property that sat vacant for the past 25 years. This TIF is funding site improvement funds, environmental remediation, water quality infiltration, bioretention, environmental remediation, aesthetic and access improvements for the ponds and paths. We talked about street reconstruction. All those roads within the Olympia complex were private. They're being built now as public roads, enhancing the streetscape, relocating gas services, as well as a pay-go after increment generated for a development incentive on the back end. $18.7 million in investment. We've seen the projects coming through. Obviously, what we're starting to see now that infrastructure, Sendik's announcement, Pet Supplies Plus has come forward, Panera Bread, so there's more to come as people continue to build those outlots by us delivering public infrastructure, leveraging the development to be able to make it successful as we continue to go on. That's what it looks like today. They opened up the apartments June 1st, 2 buildings already full. Are you leased up on the third one before you open it yet? Probably, because that's what seems to be happening as people are attracted. So again, to recap, we've used the tool fairly advantageously as a community to continue to as an alternative funding method to accomplish our broad strategic goals, improving and maintaining our infrastructure and facilities, focusing on community growth and improving our quality of life, not just for the districts, but our community as a whole.
Any questions before we move on? Thank you for, oops, Alderman Kavieski.
Sorry. We talked about this earlier, but again, I think it's good for the community to understand. The amount that's generated in the increment that goes to pay back the TIF is 100% allocated to pay back the TIF. If that wasn't the case, or once that's paid back, 100% of the tax dollars is not necessarily utilized in the levy, when it comes back to the levy.
That's correct. It'll get
So if you could-
reapportioned back to the taxing entities that originally approved creation of the district. So we only get the portion, if you looked at the $1.29 of that, I think that's the most current one that I got from Hannah. We only get that portion as it moves forward once it's closed.
Well, thank you for a very comprehensive outline.
Tried to go
That's
somewhat
wonderful.
quick.
Thank you.
How long you want to, I don't
We're
know
gonna
how- if you really want to hear me this long, but yeah.
No, it's great. Thank you. It's good for the community. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, consider act on Resolution 22-R3048, approving a redevelopment plan for the North Main Street redevelopment project area. Mr. Duffy.
Huh. Name and address.
Bob Duffy, 1870. Sometimes live at 174 East Wisconsin Avenue.
You got 3 minutes.
Can I have your last name, please?
So, redevelopment plan on your agenda is consideration of establishing a redevelopment plan. Want to kind of bring us through the steps we've come to date. This is not approving a project. This is approving a redevelopment plan, critical component as it relates to blight determination, and how we move forward as it relates to achieving our goals in our downtown plan. You guys maybe have seen the poster piece, but there is actually a several hundred-page document that supports much of what goes into a redevelopment plan. It makes everything consistent, not both. This plan is incorporated as referenced into our comprehensive plan. So when you hear those things interchangeably, that's how those elements happen, because there's very specific goals in this, what we would call a neighborhood plan, that we continue to try to move forward and do. This plan was actually developed in 2004, so many of those components, we continue to try to do that. So where we're at in the legal overview of the blight determination component, again, blighted area means an area by dilapidation, deterioration, age, or obsolescence is detrimental to the public and general welfare. That's right from the statute. And again, the important parts as it relates to this area from a redevelopment plan is the deterioration of structures, site improvements, or otherwise substantially impairs or arrest the sound growth of the community. Our goal is to continue to try to get areas to grow, redevelop, and values to increase in our overall community. Community development is involved from a statutory role as it relates to designating the boundaries of the area, submitting those boundaries to this body. You approved a resolution related to that. I'll go through those dates of what we did. And preparing the redevelopment plan, which has been made available to the public, as well as conduct a public hearing, which we did this evening. From a council standpoint, you have the final decision-making authority on these documents. Adoption of a resolution declaring the area blighted, which you have done. Adoption of a resolution of the project area, which was of the project area prepared by the authority. You did that creation of that boundary already. And then tonight's discussion is adoption of a resolution by 2/3 for the redevelopment plan as itself. And I'll go through what those steps are. So you've already done some of these things. May 17th, you authorized the CDA to pursue the process. May 31st, you approved the blighted district and those boundaries in a previous action. This evening, we held the CDA public hearing. We had 3 people who spoke. 4 people who spoke. Ms. Mankey spoke on behalf of the German market. Mr. Coots spoke, Mr. Skrima, and a resident, Laura Gibbs from 908 West LaBelle Avenue, spoke at the public hearing as it relates to this specific project as published. So what is a redevelopment plan? So we're providing a general framework for us to use and guide the specific development of these area needs tied back to consistency with the plans, while always looking to seek to eliminate and stop the spread of blight and the deterioration of structures, identify the project boundaries, the development patterns and improvements that would benefit not only this area, but the community as a whole, as well as give the CDA the power to acquire, improve, and dispose of property if it's necessary as it relates to a redevelopment area. So the objectives themselves: fostering private redevelopment investment in stagnating areas, provide adequate infrastructure, improve traffic circulation, provide pedestrian linkages and ambiance through streetscape, coordinate redevelopment activity within areas, encourage mixed-use development. That's a key component that was in our plan. In our downtown plan, our total vision had a lot to do with how do we create an experience economy in our downtown, and how do we create vitality and activity in our downtown. So always trying to do that through developing these plans as we move forward. Encouraging infill development in areas that are needed, as well as established the development vision and standards. So identified the project area of which you approved a couple weeks ago. It is these 4 parcels between 121 and 131 North Main Street. For those who, and we have to legally describe it, so that was the previous map. This is the bird's eye view of where those parcels are. 3 parcels are privately owned. This strip is actually owned by the city. Within the plan, we got to talk about existing land use, existing zoning, existing property conditions, so work through that really very quickly. According to our land use plan, this area is suited for mixed-use commercial, office, and residential, which is currently zoned for a similar type of a use. Also incorporated in the plan is what the future might hold. So in the plan, it simply references the tools we have available to us. The plan doesn't set the parameters as it relates to future zoning, but it does recognize in our zoning ordinance, we have the ability, and you and the Plan Commission have the ability to create plan developments, which provide flexibility in order to have a public-private partnership and achieve amenities as well as encourage investment and development. So the plan does specifically reference that. As part of the requirement of the statute, we're required to do a blight determination matrix. Remember from my TIF conversation, 50% of the area needs to be an area that meets the statutory definition of blight. So staff went through and did the statutory requirement checklist as it relates to this. Currently, 83% of the property within the redevelopment boundary meets the statutory definition of blight. For these primary reasons: lack of upkeep and maintenance, dilapidated facades, deterioration of existing improvements, accumulated debris, vacant buildings, as well as inadequate and unsafe electrical system, as well as water damage. That was evidenced by information provided. This is a letter from May of 2021 of an insurance company canceling their insurance policy. Terminating insurance coverage. After their inspection, it was found that the electrical system was unacceptable, as well as interior water damage to the walls and the ceiling of at least 3 of those structures. So through that process, we have come to a conclusion that the conditions exist to justify finding a blight in this area, and in order to eliminate those blighting influences and encourage private investment, ask that through the city council, the community development authority are justified through the statute to be able to move forward with a blight determination and a redevelopment plan. So again, in working somewhat in concert, because we have a development proposal in front of us, using some of those elements to try to put at least ideas of what we can do as it relates to a redevelopment plan. These are not set in stone. That's part of the site design process, and we'll talk about some of those timelines, but really identifying things that could happen in this area. And we've used some of the things that they've developed as we continue to look to achieve that vision. So public improvements of the boardwalk extension, utility upgrades, the crosswalk relocation to connect North Main Street with the western extension of the walk along the lake, Village Green enhancement, parking expansion, public restrooms, community rooms. All those are elements that came from conversations. The developer came to the city back in November, gathered feedback from the community, from the business community, all those elements. We've at least wrapped them in here to show those as potential opportunities. Obviously, we're going to recognize that in order to meet the but-for test, there needs to be a demonstration of the need or the gap, but that can allow us to provide a development incentive as the opportunity for TID creation expenses as we do it. But what some of these areas look like, the public boardwalk, as we've talked about, I know some of the things that have gone out there, none of our discussions have ever involved us being involved in financing a private boat pier. They've actually even offered, not only they're going to pay for this, they've actually indicated a willingness to provide public opportunity to connect to that to be able to get them downtown. But that would be a decision they would need to make. Our involvement is purely the extension of the public boardwalk, which was a vision in our downtown plan when we developed it in 2004. Public parking through their involvement in public input, talking with the downtown business groups, talking with the community, as Mary Claire Lancer had mentioned, public parking is a continuing interest and demand in our community. So have the ability to be able to do that within this area as part of the redevelopment plan. Heard about public restrooms as a need in our community as we become an activity center, an event center, and a destination center by utilization of the Village Green. Public multi-use community space potentially in the building has been a concept that's been out there as it relates to the community. Site development costs as it relates to this. Again, they've been very transparent of the need to be able to build potentially underground parking under this structure where they would need some area to be able to do that, as well as support public parking on top of it, in which we would have an easement. We have experience with that. The Eagles Landing project was built very similarly to that. So we have done that through an agreement where it's a long-term lease and the public can use those public spots just as they can today, but expanded. Public utilities will be necessary to increase the needs and capacities for the building itself, fire flows, those types of things. So the need for water, sewer, sanitary lines, location of electric infrastructure out of the view shed of the lake. Currently it's right there. Rearrangement of rain gardens and some of those other stormwater accommodations similar to what we had to do when we built the previous boardwalk would deploy some of those elements with the expansion as well. We briefly talked about moving the crosswalk. Again, as this pathway goes to the west, does it seem to make sense to generate more parking in front of commercial buildings? Move it to the north in hopes at some point we can actually reach our vision and connect this through an easement or future opportunities to be able to do that and move that crosswalk itself. Talked about green space improvements. Again, we're at a conceptual level at this component. We need to design this, what it needs, how it works with the Park and Rec Department, how it works with the various entities, as well as event groups related to it. But that is an opportunity for this plan. So the Rockwell is really the project that, although we're not approving it, that is where the vision is as it relates to their collaboration and a public-private partnership potential between the city achieving its long-range goals, as well as the developer being able to bring an additional historic redevelopment here to our community. So tonight before you is consideration of the redevelopment plan itself, which finalizes the blight determination component. That blight determination component becomes the element of a potential future TIF district should we decide to move in that direction. The CDA must certify the redevelopment plan in accordance with state statute, but we're not done. I would consider this the beginning because there's a long list of things that needs to happen as it relates to a project. That's why we wanted to make sure the public understands that. Project still needs project land use, zoning, and site development approval through the Plan Commission and through this body. It needs developers agreements, it needs all those types of elements before we continue to move forward. So we think maybe through the summer, those uses, plan development, plan changes that may be necessary to be able to do that could occur. Site development and construction could begin by fall of this year. Should we be interested in continuing with this process for a late 2023, early 2024 development project completion? I think that's consistent with what you guys said, right? Again, we've been working collaboratively, trying to build some of these elements seamlessly as much as we can. The more we can do this up front and collaborate in a public-private partnership, the better it is to achieve those goals. So it's a win-win for I would say a win-win-win, city, residents, as well as development, to encourage that continued growth in achieving our overall, again, our overall vision that we saw 2004. That's a long time.
Do I have any questions from council for Mr. Duffy?
Go over that again.
You want it number 3? I did it twice today. No, happy to. Happy to.
I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Ellis.
Second, Kavieski.
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
Did you have something, Karen?
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. Oh, that's okay. I just want to thank Bob for his clarification on some things and for the public to understand that this is just the next part of the process, that we still have a lot of input and a lot of things to consider as far as going forward with this development. And I want to thank Mary Claire and Jeff, and especially your comments tonight as far as having some more public open houses, so to speak. And I would encourage the public to come to those and get as much information as they can. State your concerns, state your comments, get your questions answered as we go forward with this. So thank you.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth. Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Nay.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next item. Consider act on updated Olympia Fields mixed-use development design standards for the project located on Olympia Fields Drive. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you. I'll introduce this item on the agenda, and then I know that the applicants are here as well. They can shed some light on it. But the city has been working with Vanguard Partners for several years on this mixed-use project, and the city is partnering with Vanguard, so we wanted to ensure that there's going to be very high standards for Olympia Fields. We asked them to create development standards for architecture, lighting, landscaping, signage, you know, all of the above. So there's continuity throughout the entire development of these things. All the signage should be similar, and the lighting, the landscaping, and most important, the building design. You've seen this before, but they did not have some of the elements in here, like lighting and landscaping and signage, and they've tweaked some of the architectural stuff. The architectural tweaks was very small. They brought forth their first projects, which was Panera and a mixed-use building, and these were smaller buildings, and one of the components that the planning staff caught was that there's supposed to be 5 feet of articulation in the building over a 30-foot stretch. That didn't make sense to the architectural commissioners. We took this back to them both in May and June, and in June they actually asked that they approved it, and both the architectural has to approve it as well as the Common Council, and they said let's remove that standard of 5 feet for a 30-foot stretch. It just didn't make sense in such a small building. You have small sites, and you're losing a lot of square footage by shoving the building in 5 feet. And let me clarify, this is not a step back. This is on the building front facade. This is articulation, this is building relief on the front. So that, and then there was also a roof pitch issue because this is supposed to be Prairie, Craftsman style. It's supposed to be a low pitch. Well, if the building is a little bit wider, maybe that pitch is going to be either higher or lower slightly. So it shouldn't be exactly dictated in that. So they wanted, the Architectural Commission, they approved it with some changes. The applicants agreed to that to give some site design flexibility. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm not the expert in architecture, but I know that Matt Maroney and Mark Lake are here from Vanguard to talk about this item.
Alderman Kavieski.
There was a lot of work put into the expectations of what was going to go here. And this does not degrade or change material selections and the look and feel of what was proposed and what is moving forward. I think that's really important for the community to understand. We've seen some developments come in here and end up over here. That's not the case with this.
Right, there's no change in material types, standard materials of the building. Right.
Alderman Rozak.
So my understanding is the only changes that were made within this from what we originally approved is what's on this little sheet, right, with the highlights?
Right, that's correct. Roof slopes and building relief. And then they did add some sections that you didn't see before. Lighting, landscaping, signage.
Oh, they added those sections, so they're new sections, that's right. You said, you made a comment, something about having the council approve something else in the future? What was that? I don't, did they take something out with regard to that? I don't think they did. I lost you there. There was some council approval thing.
No, this has to be approved, I said, by both the Common Council as well as the Architectural Commission.
This document?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you said, okay.
Yeah, and the Architectural approved it on June 8th.
Yeah,
So I think
that was agreed upon in the early phase.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. So the only concern I had, and I talked to the developer, one of the guys representing them, Matt Maroney, about the wall relief. We did, what originally we had put in there was 5 feet of relief, which means there had to have been almost like a, some type of almost partition. What I envision is kind of what we did, and I'm assuming this is what they're going to try to do. If they're still at 30 feet, they're going to put some type of relief in, visually or architecturally, right?
I think this is where I call up Matt Maroney.
Yeah, because, we talked about it at length today, so.
Yeah, and I think the issue is when we built the larger residential buildings, right? Those are larger buildings. The 5 feet relief made a lot of sense. So when we were going through and putting the standards together, we didn't really stop and think for a minute, hey, how about these smaller buildings? What's that gonna look like? What's that gonna do? And it really doesn't work. So we went to the Architectural Commission and basically said, 5 feet's too much, let's reduce it to a foot or 18. And they got really thinking about it, and they're like, that may not be appropriate either. Let's handle this and require a relief. Every 30-foot span, there's gotta be some sort of relief provided. What that looks like, you're giving discretion, which is what the Architectural Commission is asking for that to happen. And you'll see examples in the design guide of commercial buildings, I think it's page 7 and 8, where you'll see smaller commercial buildings, and those are not 5-foot areas of relief. They're more like a foot to 18 inches. So that's really the only change that's before you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think that's a good explanation. It also reminds me of what we did with Pabst, or the Fleet Farm at Pabst Farms, where we didn't let them build these massive long walls without columns or, some kind of lighting or something. And we did it on all 3 sides that face the public. So as long as we're getting something that makes the buildings not look flat and ugly, that's my big concern, and we're gonna hold you to that. And I hope, I'm always cautious to give more discretion to some of our committees, but I hope the Architectural Committee will do a good job in policing this and making sure it looks good. And I encourage them to be careful about that and do a good job.
So from our experience, I would say it's probably one of the most thorough committees that we've worked with.
Good.
So, yeah.
Alderman Kavieski.
And again, the reason this is coming back to this body is to ensure the quality of the development that was originally proposed, which this does. You're not degrading or downgrading materials. You're not changing the aesthetic. You're actually addressing the variables that come forward with the different types of development that are associated with Olympia Fields in size of building. So it's thoughtful, and ensures the best product for the community and those who are purchasing and visiting it.
Yeah, and
I believe is.
And we didn't even bring up the roof plane issue. That was brought up independently by the architectural committee. So that was something, hey, we're doing that. We may want to change kind of some of that as well, so.
What's the roof plate? Can you explain that?
Well, so the pitch of the roof, so these smaller buildings, to try to force, a more prairie-style look and be off by a couple inches, but technically not comply, they're like, let's give them a little bit of flexibility. We know what we want to see, but let's not stick to the strict number.
Any other questions from council? For either Mr. Gallo or for the Vanguard Partners? Like to entertain a motion.
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Rozek.
Any further questions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth, Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
And to consider act on conveyance of rights in the land between the city of Oconomowoc and the county of Waukesha, that's Valley Road, County B, and Morgan Road intersections.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Fry.
We have an extremely small piece of land that we have out in this intersection of Valley and Morgan Road. It's triangular shape. It's about 28 feet per side of the triangle. And as part of Waukesha's county program to reconfigure this intersection, we need to provide them the rights to that, as it'll all be within the right-of-way. So that's what this document is doing tonight. It's allowing the piece of land that we have in this intersection to be conveyed to the county as right-of-way so that they can reconfigure it. We're probably not going to build anything on it, but if we did, it would have to be awfully tall to make it work.
Questions or comments for Mr. Fry?
Would it be possible to put a pickleball court there if we didn't give it to them?
The way you hit it.
Okay.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Rozek so moved.
Shell Pepper second.
Any further questions or comments? Make sure I don't miss anybody. Call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
The next item, consider act to have or cancel the July 5th, 2022 Common Council meeting. So you have the opportunity to have that or not have it, and I'd entertain a motion.
Move to cancel.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Sorry, I didn't hear a second.
Think about that a
Was
little
that
bit.
you, Chaz? That's what I
Oh,
thought.
Pfeiffer.
Okay, thank you.
You
Call
know,
the, call the
bef-
question.
Before I call roll,
I object.
yeah,
I'm afraid to ask a question.
just
parliamentary
just for the
procedures.
community, we've tried to make sure that nothing serious or important is something that has to go to that council meeting. So thank you to city administrator and the staff to make sure that that was an option if you so elected. So call roll, please.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis,
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
I thought somebody was going to do a nay at least.
Nay.
one.
I object.
All right,
And then
so we
show
want
that
to make
government's
sure
not
that
needed
that's.
Then July 4th.
So, on to staff reports, Mr. Fry.
Thank you. In about the past 10 days, we had 3 fairly significant rain or hail events. It goes back to June 10th, that Friday night, when Oconomowoc saw probably one of the biggest hailstorms that I'll ever see this area. Unbelievable, the damage to the leaves being torn from the trees because of the hail, the flooding it caused, just a lot of issues. We had staff out working immediately. Both the police department and Western Lakes Fire District were out there. They didn't have boots on, they didn't have waders on. They're out there in their shoes and walking through this knee-deep cold water full of hail, trying to open up catch basins to get the city streets to dry down. The following Monday, we got about 1.25 inches of rain in about 15 minutes, which caused some localized flooding in the streets. And then Wednesday of that week, we got 2.5 inches of rain that night. So I just want to commend all the city crews and all the city departments. You know, it might have been Public Works and Park and just those departments out there. But the other ones completely support all the other operations, so I just wanted to talk about how proud I was of the crews. You know, police and fire, I'll guarantee you, there's a lot of communities that police and fire said, no, call Public Works. That's their job. This hit on a Friday night. It was never predicted. We had no idea that was going to happen. Kevin's not here tonight, but I just want to throw out some words of appreciation for the job that he had recently done. We had a major force main break. So the force main is what pumps the sanitary sewer to our main plant from areas outside the city. And we had a force main break in the backyard of a property along the river. They were right on top of it. They had a contractor in. We found out that the pipe was severely deteriorated from the gases that built up in there. So they had worked 2 days on that, but in addition to keeping the plant running and this operation, he had to line up trucks to haul the sewage from the lift station so that they wouldn't back up. He had worked on a plan and had parts on the way here in order to bypass pump these stations, because our concern was that this was going to be a long, drawn-out affair. So, you know, Kevin and his crew did an excellent job. There was no sewage backup to anybody. Everything went well. He'll be looking at that to see what we need to do for a full repair. But, you know, when we talk about, you know, the crews that we have here and we talk about how great they are, these are just examples that, you know, really exemplify that. So wanted to just give that shout out to them.
I want to add on to that because it's a lot of these things, there are a lot of little things that our staff does that people don't realize. When you have a horrible thing, you know, Conemaugh all responds, our staff, but also you saw people out there clearing things for graduation at the high school, going out and opening up sewer drains because they were getting clogged. So it was really a whole effect, and this is truly what makes a Conemaugh special. And echo that same appreciation, especially for all the people as well as the staff that have done that. Thank you very much. Are there any additional staff reports there?
No.
Okay. We're going to move on to any comments from Alderman. Alderman Spiegelberg.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the SOFA event and their organizers. It was just a phenomenal event. Everything went off without a hitch. First year in Fowler Park. I got no complaints in my district. As a matter of fact, I got a lot of positive comments that it was a great event. Obviously, the weather was great. That the music shut down at 9. They cleaned up very quietly and went on their way. And so everything I got was positive. I just wanted to let you know that. So
Great.
yeah.
Any other comments? Alderman Kavieski.
Our staff, PD, Western Lakes, everybody did respond extremely well to the weather situation, but I think I heard from several that it really highlights the need to have yard waste dealt with maybe with city resources, a place that we can go with our leaves and our sticks, and maybe a joint effort with the town, if not for anything else, but for those natural disaster situations until we can find permanent space. That would help a lot of issues as potentially they move forward. So maybe we can take a look at that. And I know I just haven't had time to reach out to you, and I know you'll be receptive to that conversation.
Alderman Ellis.
I want to second that. For years now, I've been, a lot of my constituents have been asking why we don't have something in reference to a place where we can drop our leaves and things, because I know the town does. Regardless if the town does or not, I think we really do need to have that because of a situation like this. So I'd really like to begin conversation and maybe find an area which we can go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Any other Alderman comments? With no additional comments, I have no additional comments as mayor. I'd like to thank everyone for coming and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Kavieski.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Hello?
Too late.